Is this how it starts?
This is how it starts. So, when you started in Pittsburgh, you were a couple years ahead of me, and we both have a real knack for just finding shows that shouldn't even be shows.
Well, I was wondering about doing this if I could think of how many hell gigs that I did that you weren't on, so it could be something that you weren't a part of because we've done so many shitty gigs together.
I know. So I know you have one that I don't think I've ever heard of. I'm excited to hear.
Oh, I think I don't know if I told you the story. So coming up in Pittsburgh, we obviously do a lot of like fire hall gigs, a lot of Elks clubs, that type of crowd,
Yeah.
which you know you always think is like fish in a barrel because you've done it so many times. You know the blue collar crowd, but I do a gig with a guy named Buddy Flip. It's a Christmas party at
Which is such a good comedy name.
oh Buddy Flip, it's the best.
One night only, Buddy Flip.
But it's one of those gigs that I get there and it's a Christmas party for a fire department, like right outside of Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And Buddy comes up to me right when I get there and he says, "Hey, this is one of these shows I got through Gig Master." He's like, "You never know how these are gonna go."
Which is, for people that don't know, it is an online bidding service that comedians go on and they post like their themselves to be hired for gigs, and you just have no idea what it's gonna be like.
But the thing is the people hiring, it's not like the club bookers. It's just somebody like, "Hey, you know what would be cool at my dad's 80th birthday?"
Right.
Somebody doing 25 minutes of comedy.
Right.
So like I've been on the sites and I've gotten one show off them because I just see what they are and I'm like, "Oh, a Sweet 16 party? Yeah, I'm bidding $3,000 because that's what it's going to take for me to do that bullshit." But so we go do this fire hall and he says, "You never know how these things are going to go." And I'm like, "Nah, you usually know how these things are going to go."
Yeah.
And it's like this, the setup's terrible. So it's these two tables like in front of where so there's a stage and then there's seats set up. I would say that there was about 20 chairs set up, like folding chairs, nobody sitting in them. Behind those folding chairs
So that's the front row.
That's the front four fucking rows. and there's no stage, it's just the ground with a microphone.
Okay.
So behind that are two poker tables with active games going on, active poker games.
Okay.
Then behind that are a bunch of banquet tables where like 20 people are scattered throughout 9 tables.
Oh, good.
So it's not set up great. So
how many people do you think are in the room?
In the room total, between the people standing up by the bar, between the people sitting at the banquet tables, and the World Poker Tour, there's like 40 people, 50 people maybe.
Okay.
And the food all looked disgusting.
Yeah.
So the guy comes up to me and Buddy, and there's one other guy standing there. I forget who it was who was on it. I was hosting, and the guy goes up, and I'm like, "Hey," he's like, "We're gonna get this thing started in about 5 minutes." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, do you want to tell Doyle Brunson that this is about to happen?" And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "So, are you gonna put an end to the card games?" And he's like, "Nah, they'll do their thing, and you just do your little thing."
Oh my God.
I'm like, "All right." I said, "Do you want to say something, like bring me up or say a couple words before me?" He's like, "Nah, you should be good with that, right?" And I'm like, "Jesus, dude." So there's like this active poker game going on, right?
Right.
And I get up there, I'm like, "Hey, how's everybody doing?" Like trying to like get into it. And all I hear over me is just people like, "Oh, I'm gonna fold, man. What'd you have?" And I'm like, "What the fuck is going on here?" So finally, at one point, like I'm getting a little bit of laughter from the people at the banquet tables. There's one dude at the bar like loving it, but he's loving it like in the wrong way, where he just keeps being like, "He said butthole." And I'm like, yeah, man, I did say that. Stop repeating it. And one of the old guys at the table playing poker goes, "You're too loud," and just yells it. That's loud in Pittsburgh, loud. And and so like I'm like, okay, I'm a comedian. I got a witty response for this. I said,
Right.
okay, bro, well, turn down your fucking hearing aid. So thinking like it got a little bit of a laugh. So thinking I like burned this dude, he literally puts his fingers in his ear and turns down his hearing aid. And I was just like, oh my God, is this the worst thing ever? And like, I'm barely getting it was like I'm just talking. Like, it's like they had a
Well,
poker game. It's like I'm at the casino just walking around behind poker tables.
to be fair, some of the people were deaf. I mean, is it possible that you did a show for an all deaf like poker tour?
Yeah, on all that poker tour that were also firefighters.
Oh my God! Now wait. So like, did anyone do well?
I left right after my set.
Oh my God! Did you get paid?
Yeah, I got my right when I got off stage. But or no, Buddy gave it to me. But this was the cool thing about Buddy that night is he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna give you your money now. They didn't pay me, but this is what we're gonna make. So you can just leave right after you get off
Which
stage."
is the telltale sign of this is about to be a bad experience.
Well, he said it right after the guy was like, "You do your little thing," you know.
He's like, oh man, I can't put this kid through this. How long were you doing comedy? I feel like this was kind of recently.
It was recent. I mean, you know, I had headlined, you know, shows, like decent shows.
Oh man, what a true comic. Just not turning anything down.
It was close to the holidays. Who couldn't use like $150?
Right.
Running down and doing 15 minutes in like 20 minutes from my house.
You're like, this is easy. This will be no problem.
Bunch of blue collar firefighters. I've made them laugh for years.
So what kind of material were you doing? Because I know the kind of material you do, but like, were you
Well, I started doing so after he yelled at me, said I was too loud, turned down his thing. I started telling everybody what hands he had. I could see his poker hand. I was like, he got a 9 and an 8.
What?
Yeah, and he couldn't hear me, and they all started laughing. I saw his hand, I 100% did, but I wouldn't do it. I'm as a gambler, I couldn't in my heart say what it really was.
You have too much pride as a gambler to.
Yeah.
You should have just sat down and joined the game.
Well, then I started doing the because I was just bombing so hard, you know. So then I just started like putting the mic close to my face and doing. I was like, and Tex Chapman looks like he's gonna fold. Oh, this is a textbook bluff. And I just started making up all these names and like doing what they do on World Series of Poker, and that was like a little bit of laughs. And then, like, after I did it for a while, one of the dudes at the card table was like, man, come on, man. We're really trying to play. Like, what the hell is going on here?
But didn't they know there was a show?
See, that's what I'm saying is people have these, like, they think it seems like such a good idea to have comedy. It's like if you invited people over your house for a Christmas party and were like, hey, I'm going to throw on Soul Plane or The Nutty Professor and just have this funny movie in the background while everybody's partying. So if you want, you could dabble and listen. But instead, what they do at this fire department is they have an actual human being there, like a live animal. So
Right.
You can pet it for a little bit if you want.
You're like a freak show at a carnival.
Yeah.
God, that's horrible. I don't think I ever heard that story. So while you're on stage and you realize that they're not going to listen to you, are you just burning through material? Like, are you going like 100 miles an hour?
You see, I think I usually do one of two things in that situation. Is I either just do commentary on the room, not even funny. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh, look at that dude, just really going at it with that cheese, huh? You know, like just eating.
Oh my God.
Or the other thing is, I'll just be like, just power through material. Because sometimes you just don't have a chance. Like you don't have a puncher's chance. you know?
Sometimes you're on stage and you can just feel the defeat creeping in, and you're like, you know what? I'll just get through this material, and then I'll be done with comedy.
Yeah, I was like the whole time I just remember like I was like because it was Christmas time. I was living with my mom, not anybody's business, but I was like she made her famous cookie wreaths. I'll just go home. I'll have a wreath, and we'll just it was like it was like that time when we did that terrible gig at Pitt. And you were like, all right, man, do you want to go do something? I was like, I just need a milkshake. Something to
Oh
make
my God. There is nothing, there's not a worse feeling than when you're on stage and you're already planning about how you're going to cope with the
Oh,
show.
I know.
Like, as soon as I get off this stage, I'm finding a drive-through and I'm going to cry in a parking lot.
Oh, and I don't know if you've been through this. I mean, I'm sure you have. Is those like hell gigs in Pittsburgh where like, it's usually like 45 minutes to an hour and a half drive home.
Right.
So if they suck, the first thing I do is like, man, I've been eating really healthy. Well, that's useless. Why? I'm a loser anyways because nobody thinks I'm funny. We're spending $15 at Arby's.
Oh my God. The after a bad show drive-through run it's brutal. I
It's
mean,
brutal, but it's necessary.
it is necessary because it's all you can do to pick yourself up, because like you have to get in a car and you have to be alone with yourself. It's just that and like Billy Joel's greatest hits.
Well, the
You're just singing Bob Seger on the way home, like on a long and lonesome highway.
it's like, Ray, can we choose one of his upbeat songs? Nah, we're gonna do Against the Wind.
7 times in a row.
But or what we do is I call you on the way home,
Right.
and there's nothing worse than when like I'm like, fuck, he didn't pick up. Or it's if we're both coming home from separate bad gigs and we're not even having a conversation with each other.
We can't get through to each other because we're both just redialing each other at the same
The
time.
lines are jammed. Yeah.
And I'm just like, what could he be doing? What could he be doing that he's busy?
And then you're all mad. You're like, I bet he killed tonight.
Yeah, right.
I bet he had a great set. I bet there weren't even people playing poker right in front of him.
Oh my God. So when you got off stage, did anyone say anything to you?
Like, to be honest with you, I got out of there. I walked out. I brought the one dude up, and then I said, "Hey, buddy, Merry Christmas," and I just beeline towards the door.
Hey, buddy. And that guy was probably like, who was that? He's like,
I was just. I remember texting Buddy after though. I was like, "Hey, how was the rest of the show, man?" I was like, "I'm sorry I didn't even wait around at all." He said, "No, that's why I paid you before you went on." He was like, "It was a lot of the same." He was like, "I tried to do crowd work, but he was like, I got up during the most intense part of the poker game."
oh my God. Man, and you're usually like, I don't know, we came up in a scene that had so many of those just horrible fire hall shows. So like, it's almost like our bread and butter. Like when we walk into a room like that, we think we're fine.
Well, and I do pride myself on being good in rough situations like that, and like where there's a lot of, commotion and a lot of people that weren't ready for a comedy show. But this was just one of those things where like, it was like, oh, you think you're good in one of those situations, Ray? All right. Let's slide a bunch of empty chairs in front of you. Oh, you think you can handle that? Let's put a poker game here. Oh, you think you can handle that? Let's get just 2 drunk guys in the corner friendly heckling you like they're the goddamn old men from the Muppets.
Oh, I remember we did that show in a fire hall. It was probably also around Christmas because we just take so many bad things around Christmas. You're like, I gotta buy gifts for people.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
We did that show where did it in the middle of the fire hall, and there were people sitting around us.
That was the Comic Wars thing.
And you sat down at a table during the show, and we're drinking with some of
moonshine. I was drinking moonshine.
You just sat down during the show with people, we're drinking with them, watching the show as an audience member.
Well, and it was a show that we all had to be involved in the whole time.
Right.
And it was such a mess because Matt Wolfarth doesn't always, put things together tightly.
Yeah, the show was really bad.
It was chaos.
We were in the middle of like 200 people with like folding chairs doing like a 6-person show.
The setup was like we were about to get stoned.
Oh my God, that is insanity. And it's just like, what do people expect? Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. It just comes from such a lack of like knowing the logistics of a stand-up comedy show.
yeah.
People think like this would be cute,
I've seen comedy. I think we should have comedy.
Yeah. Oh,
People just say the word comedy and they think they have it figured out.
Earl would love to laugh.
Yeah, right. What would have been better for them is like a little boombox with a couple of CDs.
Well, I know. Yeah, like they're or a DJ.
Right.
A DJ, you don't have to give your respect.
Yeah, he could just stand there all night, eat stuffed chicken breast.
He'd love it.
He would love it, man. And it's not the only time though that. Well, that's what I love about you is that you are never too big to take even the worst shows.
Fuck you. well, I'm just thinking the other story that I was gonna tell is like I am a gambler. I love gambling,
right?
And both of the stories that I thought of today before I got on here involve gambling at the comedy show.
And it's also fitting because you are a gambler, and both of these stories involve you gambling with yourself.
I know.
Thinking that you were going to do well with these shows.
Just rolling the dice for a C note, Right.
So what's the other one?
So I did man, this is so in like a neighborhood that I grew up near, Turtle Creek, I accepted this gig at a place where I used to go to like birthday parties there all the time. Like that was like the place to go for like a birthday party in 7th.
A banquet hall?
Yeah. It's like in Upper Turtle Creek. And Jason Russell, J. Russ, got me the gig, and he did it because he knows like at the improv he performs in front of a lot of black crowds, and he would put me on his shows pretty early when I started, and I always did well. Like, that's what helped me get into the improv earlier than I probably should have. Is that I was a white kid who could perform in front of black crowds and kind of hold his own.
Yeah.
And so this crowd, it was a comedians and casino night, which is illegal probably.
Yeah.
Have this casino
not something that's usually, like comedians perform in casinos, but it's usually in Vegas, and it's usually Don Rickles.
And it's usually licensed gambling establishments. like I'm pretty sure
the flyers aren't made on like Microsoft Publisher.
Yeah. with the drama masks, the comedy drama masks on the front, and then a bunch of poker chips around it. But I think this was before even Rivers was open.
Okay.
So the casino in Pittsburgh. So I don't even know if like table games were legal if you were doing it legally.
Okay.
So I get there, and it's a room set up for 300 people. I think 45 showed up.
Oh my God.
And of course they didn't sit compact together. They sat all around the room. And there's like a big curtain in the back, and behind that was like legit roulette tables, crap tables, poker tables. Like it was a setup. And the show I think was supposed to start at 8:00. And I don't want to stereotype.
Okay.
But
it was a little late.
It started a little late. And by a little late, I mean an hour and 40 minutes late.
Oh my God.
So I'm sitting there just waiting with Sam Bentley, who was on the show. She was going last. It was a host doing some time, then me, then an intermission, then Sam Bentley.
Which is always good for comedy, is to break up the momentum.
Yeah, is to break up the momentum, especially after everybody waited almost 2 hours past when the show was supposed to start.
So wait, before there's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
Before we can even get to the show. So
The question
you
is,
are
why did
waiting.
I say I would do this gig?
Yeah, but like you had so much downtime before the show even started. Like, what is going through your head? Are you just like, should I leave? Should I not leave? Is this show even going to happen?
Well, I was like, should I start drinking? I drove here. Would I be better drunk? I had to do a half hour.
Oh my God.
And
At essentially a house party.
yeah, man, like it was like a birthday party. There's like balloons on the table. I forget exactly what it was raising money for, or if it was even raising money for anything.
I don't think it was, man. It kind of sounds like the premise of that movie, The House, with Will Ferrell, where they just start an illegal casino and bring in comedians.
And I was Rory Scovel just performing.
Yeah, right.
But they had like, it was like a big stage in the place. There's a DJ on stage. So they ask for my bio, and the only credits that the host brings me up with is just every black headliner I've ever opened for. Doesn't mention any of my other credits, right? So they're probably thinking that they're getting like Gary Owen, you know?
Right.
But I'm not like you know, I'm not like a urban act by any means, you know? Like I'm not, but I get on stage and the music he brings me up with is Another One Bites the Dust. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I get up there and I get a big laugh on the first thing I say. I'm like, wow. I was like, so I had high hopes for this until he brought me up to Another One Bites the Dust. So you know, that just seems like an omen, you know, and like whatever I said, I can't remember. Yeah, I probably said it way tighter and funnier.
Mm-hmm.
But that gets a laugh, and then I'm like, all right, you know what? This isn't going to be so bad. And then it was horrendous.
Oh my God.
It got to the point where I'm literally standing up there. I'm like, yo, because people are so far away from me, and people are like so scattered out that I'm to the, like a couple people maybe were enjoying it, but I'm on stage literally yelling like, yo, shut the fuck up. Yo, shut up. Shut the fuck up. Like losing it.
It takes a lot of confidence, or not even confidence. It takes a lot of just like, this is my last ditch effort to tell a room full of people gambling.
So, and well, they weren't gambling yet. They weren't allowed to gamble until after the show. So again, that's why they probably weren't thrilled. They already waited a fucking hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. And then now they got some chubby lesbian on stage, you know, talking about his, I don't know what jokes I was doing then. They're not great now. They weren't. Right. So the DJ on stage at one point, he's watching a video on his phone, and I hear it, and I turn around. I said, "Hey, man, if anybody's gonna give me like a shed of respect, can it be you? Are you watching YouTube? Can you shut your fucking volume off your phone?" And then he goes, "No, man, I'm watching you." And I said, "Hey, I'm right here live. Watch me now." Yeah, I said, you're not watching me. What you're watching is a fucking Snapchat you got from one of your asshole friends in the audience who is making fun of me right now. And then a whole table just busts out laughing. So I know I powered through 30 minutes on the nose. I think I quit mid-joke.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I remember saying, I was like, you guys fucking sucked. And I walked off. I was one of 3 white people there.
Oh my God.
And I got off.
You, the manager of the establishment.
No, it was me, some chick, and Sam Bentley's boyfriend.
Okay.
At the time, the dude that she was with. And and Sam, like, me and Sam, I remember, like, even before the show started, we were just like, what the fuck is going on? When is this going to start? You know,
Yeah.
like, just like, and like, it was cool that at least she was there, like an actual comic. So, like, we're going back and forth, like, bullshit and cutting up. So it made the time pass a little bit. But, you know, it was just like that impending doom, you know? So
Oh, yeah.
the intermission starts. So it's not like I get off and then everybody's still sitting in their seats.
Right.
They're all outside smoking and stuff. So I got to walk out, like, past everybody to go get to my car because I'm leaving. I'm not sticking around for the rest of the show.
Right.
I'm not going to fucking sit in at blackjack. I'm gone.
Right,
And,
right.
and I walk out and this guy, like, comes up to me and he's like, yo, shakes my hand. He's like, man, you funny. I was like, well, you should have told your face during the show.
Right.
And he's like, no, man, you funny. But the thing is, like, you know, like, you went on too long. And I'm like, what? Yeah, I had to be on there for 30 minutes. That's what I got paid to do. He's like, no, like, some of your jokes, they were, like, you know, too long. Like, they went on too long. And then I was like, no, man. I was like, people weren't even listening to me from the first word, let alone, you know, the
He's
next.
telling you to, like, tighten up your material?
But this whole time he's telling me this, he's in a handshake. He's not letting my hand go. And then I said, dude, I said, with all due respect, I've been doing this for, you know, a few years. I was like, this just was a no-win situation for me. Right. And he was like, no, man. He's like, you funny, like, keep it up, like, don't quit. And then I just pulled my hand off of his, and I was like, dude, I was like, honestly, I'm really, like, not in the mood for your critique. And I just walked away. I got in my car, and I get, like, a text, like, 2 days later, and Jay Russ is like, man, they loved you. And I'm like, no,
they
didn't. Not to harp on the race thing, but you know what I felt like is when they have, like, a Medea movie, and then they have, like, just the one nerdy white character that is just a big joke. That's probably why they loved me. So
they're like, remember that stupid white boy came up here?
I was like, yo, for shizzle. And they were like, fuck you. They were like, fuck you, Herman. Like, that was the guy that I was. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know for a fact, I've never asked her because I didn't know that my ego could handle it. But I think Sam went up and killed.
Really?
Yeah, I would imagine. I don't know, like, but that one took it out of me.
Yeah, I can see just the way from you telling the story, and you haven't really let it go.
Fortunately, I was dating one of the, like, the hottest girls that I had ever been dating. So, like, that's what I went.
That's what you had to fall back on.
Yeah, so that was nice. That was nice.
It's so funny. It's like when these gigs happen, you need something immediately to think about or to remember that you do well so you don't, like, drive your car off a bridge.
Dude, I drove right to her house after that.
You were just like, just hold me.
She was like, how was the gig? I was like, it was terrible. And she was like, oh, why? Why was it terrible? And then I was like, I don't even have time. I was like, I'm probably not gonna talk about this for another, like, in depth for another 3 years until Collin starts a podcast. Dude, bringing it. That was one of those gigs that me bringing it up right now, I, like, just got re-fired up.
I can tell.
I'm sweating.
Way you're talking to the crowd, I can put myself in your shoes and just, like, that feeling, like, in your throat when you're like, am I gonna cry? Am I gonna start crying?
I thought I was gonna, like, fight. You know, I was like, well, and the thing is as a comedian, some of the hardest I ever laugh at my friends on stage is seeing them deal with a bomb.
Right.
It's funny because we all been there, but there are some bombs like that one that I don't even think my friends would have, like, enjoyed. They would have been
felt bad.
No, they would have been like, we got to find a way to get him in touch with a therapist. He just lost it on stage.
They just go off stage like, he doesn't own a handgun, does he?
Well, no, I wouldn't have. If I could afford a handgun, I wouldn't have had to do that fucking 30 minutes for $100.
That is horrible.
Yeah.
God, that is so bad. Do you think, do you have a little bit more though, of a gauge of if a show is going to be bad now, do you think? Like before you take it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of, you know what? I actually did not think that was going to be bad because
Yeah.
I had done so many shows for Jay Russ, so I assumed that they were kind of like his audience, and
Yeah, right.
his audience is traditionally great. Like like he held one of, like, I don't know if you ever did his one show. He did it like it was in like it would sound like it would be a hell gig. It was in the basement of like or on the first floor of this house in the north side of Pittsburgh,
Yeah.
and it was fucking packed. It was cool. It was like swanky. They had like a DJ. Like people are drinking wine. Like good food. It was like just a cool ass vibe. And like his shows at Arcade were always great. So I was like, why wouldn't this one in the area where me and Jay both grew up
Yeah.
be? But he wasn't even there, and it was outsourced.
Oh, wow.
He couldn't do it, so he was like, let me get like my good friends to come do it.
Right. That's so fun. Isn't that funny? Like, I was just talking about this with another comic, like the feeling of going into a show being like, I got this. I'll be fine. Like, you build yourself up so high that when you're taken out, it's such a hard fall.
Oh
You know?
yeah. It's well, it's one of those things that, like, I mean, that's why I consider that gig was a worse gig than the first one that we talked about,
Yeah.
because my expectations were pretty low once I got there. But even once I got to that show in Turtle Creek where I came up to Another One Bites the Dust, um, I was like, I still got this. You know,
Yeah,
everybody
right.
cool. Everybody seems like a little younger.
And your first joke works.
Yeah,
So you're like, this is great. My riff worked. If my off the cuff riff worked, they're gonna love the stuff that I wrote.
yeah, and that is never right. And it just, oh man, I just remember like it was one of those things where you're like, okay, my jab didn't work. I know I'm gonna get him with this left hook. Nope, completely missed. It wasn't even near the body.
And then you're
And
just standing in the corner getting punched in the face for 30 minutes.
yeah, just pounded, dude. That was a rough one.
Well, man, I'm sorry I had to put you through that again. I'm afraid to let you go.
No, no.
I feel like I shouldn't hang up. Thank you for doing this. Tell people where they can find you.
um, you could find me. Oh man, probably laying in a ditch after having to relive that story. Uh, Hopefully you find me before I'm too bloated, so we can have an open casket for my mom to see me one last time. No, no, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at RayBeKillin'em, and could be my friend on Facebook, and maybe you could find me when we're allowed to do comedy again at a live
Yeah.
event.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for doing this, man.
All right, baby.